Welcome back. We are COMP1116, Game Programming 3 in the in the fall 2025 semester at Georgian, and it's week 1, part 2 of our broadcast and recording together. In the last part, I asked you guys to kind of set up Azure DevOps, and most of you were able to do that, no problem. Some of you had issues, and we came to about this place where we said, I wanted you to create your project. Now, you need to include me. This is the next step, okay? You need to include me as part of your team. And there's a couple steps here. First, in your organization, not the project, the organization itself. There's organization settings down here at the bottom. Click there, please, okay? Under organization settings, at the bottom, on the left, there's users, okay? And notice, as an example, I have Wallace in there as a user. What I want you to do is add me as a user. So you're going to click Add Users. Again, this is in your organization itself. And then type my last name, so T-S-I-L-I-O-P. All right, don't have to type the whole thing. You can see there's another person here as well. That's not me. This is me, okay? And then you add me as a user, click on me, add me as a user. Make sure that when I get added in, I get added in as a basic user. Okay, so again, just for the people who just came in, now that we're back to Azure DevOps, I want you guys to go to your organization. I'll say it again. You go to Organization Settings. Under Organization Settings, you're going to see Users. You want to click on Add Users. And when you click Add Users, you're going to put my name in here, my last name, T-S-I-L-I-O-P, and the rest, if you want to. You choose me, right? And then you decide to do Basic, okay? Now, projects. If you have a project, you can add me in to your project, like COMP1116. Click on that too, please. Okay? And when you're done doing this, click on Add. And that'll add me as a user in your organization and in your project. There's more to do, however. We'll talk about that in a second. That's the first thing. So add me as a user. Do that now. When you add me as a user, I will get an email, right, that tells me that you've added me. And before you leave today, I want each of you to come to my desk and I'm going to check you, right? Because if I don't, that means you're going to lose 6% of your final grade because I won't be able to see your in-class exercise 1, right? There is a trick to it, and I'm going to talk about this trick right now. The main thing is that I'm a basic user. Okay? That's important. If I'm not, and if I'm some other type of user, that's bad. That's the first part. Next, now that I'm a basic user, back to your organization, if you click on the top of this breadcrumbs here, right, you can see that there is the project itself. So click on the project, open that up, and on the bottom left corner, you're going to see again, under Teams, so this is the project for COMP1116. I went to Settings, I went to Teams, and when I click on the team, I should also appear here. You can see here in this case, I'm only here, Wallace is not here. If I wanted to add Wallace, or if somehow you didn't add me when you added me as a user, I have to click Add. Now, it'd be the same thing. I just add in my username, and then click on Save, and then I'll be added in as a user. Okay, that's how it goes here. So one of the things that happens when I'm part of your team, right, is your projects, right? And for your projects, you have a repository. Right now, you can see for me, I have ICE1. You don't have this yet. You have an empty screen that says, like, when you look at, like, if I go to repositories, this link right here, you're not going to see this. You're going to probably see something else. Like, for example, I'm going to make an empty one for a second right now, just so you can see what that looks like. You're going to see something that looks like this. Sorry. not like that. Sorry, I added a README. We don't want that. Let me try that again. And one thing that you're going to notice is that deleting repos with DevOps is super easy, and that's good, but it's also really bad, right? Because once you've deleted your repo, like you just saw me do, it's gone. And there's nothing you can do to get it back, right? It's not like GitHub. GitHub is like a process. Do you want to delete this? You sure? Are you sure? You're sure? Are you sure? You sure? You sure? Okay, now it's deleted. That's what GitHub does for you. DevOps doesn't do that, and that's fine. So again, if I want to do that, just uncheck your add README, right? And then add a new README for yourself called in-class exercise or ICE1. Okay, for you, because I've already done this with the other group, I'm going to make yours ICE1A, but it doesn't mean anything. It's just you're going to call yours ICE1. Okay, and then click create. And when you do, if you look at ICE1, or you might have already seen this before, I'm going to go to ICE1A, then it's going to look like this. Okay, that's what your repo is going to look like. Okay? So it's not going to look like it did before. Yes? You're going to make it ICE1. Because ICE1A is for me because I did it with this morning's class. Okay? So, make sure add README is not checked. Click create. And now if you go to ICE1, you can see it. It will look like, so go back to the repos, to the left. It looks like this. Now, what about if you want to delete the other one? You can now manage repos, right? If you want to delete the default one, you can go up here and you can manage repos, and you can see all the repos in a list, and you can delete the default one that comes with your group, which is, or your project, which is the same name as your project. Okay? You can delete that one. You're not going to need it. Okay? You only need ICE1 today. Okay? I've got two, ICE1 and ICE1A, because I did ICE1 this morning, and you guys are ICE1A. So that you guys know that this is the same thing, but I'm practicing with you guys now. When you're looking at my repositories, you can look at either one, and they should be fairly the same. Yes? Don't add anything extra. Just add in your repo with nothing in it. No README, no git ignore. Yes? Yeah? Right. We're not going to use that one. We're using another one. Yes. Yeah. The default project repository we're going to delete. Yes. Yeah. Good. And then let's just check your organization. So your organization. Let's just check that. Make sure it's correct and users. Yes. You can click on that again. Click on your users. Yeah. Users. Yeah. All right. So one thing to note is, so now that you've made your repository and you've made your project, right? So you have the organization, you have a project inside the organization, and you have a repo inside your project. So why is this really cool? You can make as many projects as you want, you can make as many organizations as you want, and you can make as many repos as you want. And the great thing about this for Unreal Engine, because Unreal Engine takes at least 1 gigabyte or more, and they have very large files, is it comes with large file support out of the box, which means we can put an entire Unreal project that's 5 gigabytes up here, and it's not going to complain. Some of you like using GitHub, and that's fine, I like it too, but it won't support large file support beyond a certain amount. I think it's 10 gigabytes, and then you're done, or 20. We're going to do at least that many, 20 gigabytes, maybe more, because if each project is like 1 to 2 gigabytes, and we do 12, plus your assignments, plus other stuff, it's going to be a lot of space. You're not going to be able to afford to do that with GitHub. GitHub will charge you money after a certain point, okay? So you don't want that. So please use this. One person asked this morning, how much does this cost outside of school? It's really expensive. Microsoft Azure is not a cheap service to use whatsoever. Please take advantage of it when you're in school. It gives you the ability to do a lot of different things. And like I said earlier, I'm just going to digress for a second. If you go back to dev.azure.com, just for a second, actually, that's not going to do it. Let's just go dev.azure.com with nothing in the back here. Let's see if it's not going to allow me to do it. Nah, that's just DevOps. It won't do it. So, no, what you have to do is when you go back to dev.azure.com by itself, like let's say if I was to close these all down, here it is. If I go here, one thing that you have is all resources. So you have a ton of resources here. Like if I go to more services and stuff, like there are a ton of resources that you can get through Azure DevOps. Like a ton of stuff. Like everything from software to all kinds of crazy stuff that's here. So, I mean, you can make virtual machines, you can create websites. There's lots of stuff that you have access to. So, you know, take advantage of some of this stuff if you can. That's all I'm saying, right? So, okay. And the other one the other thing to check out, there's one more link that I want to share with you, which is portal.azure.com. If you go to portal.azure.com, I think this is going to be a different link for you. No, it's the same link. But let's make sure. Yes, so portal.azure.com, of course, sign in is going to fail because I'm signed in multiple places. Portal.azure.com, right, will allow you to do other things as well. So please make sure that you know about this stuff. There's tons you can explore. Everything from creating a database to all kinds of other stuff is here. And it's for you to use as a student at Georgia. Okay, we may come back to this again for software. One thing that you can get through this portal, if I'm not wrong, and one of the links here is access to installing Windows, Visual Studio Enterprise Edition, if you want to download and install that for your personal machine, and a bunch of other stuff. Okay. All right, so that's it with Azure for a second. So we're going to keep this screen up, and I'm going to come back to it because what I'm looking for is once you've added me in, then I should be able to access your files. Okay, that's the important thing. So what I want to do is be able to see the same stuff that I'm sharing with you. You're going to have it on your side. I want to be able to see those things. It's one of the requirements for your submission for in-class exercise 1 and every other in-class exercise plus your tests. All right, will be required here, right? Make sense? Okay, so now let's move on. So now that we've got this going on, let's bring up Visual Studio, please. So Visual Studio is the next piece. Let's bring that up. What was that? Well, you can look for it. If you go down here, you can type in Visual Studio, and hopefully you have this installed, right? And you don't want the installer, you want the actual Visual Studio itself, this one, okay? Now, here are some assumptions. If you're using your own machine, right, the assumption is you've installed Visual Studio properly. I don't know what that means. And that means that you've got all the different piece parts that I have, right? If you don't have Visual Studio installed properly, that's in your own machine, that's something we have to resolve at some other point because it takes hours and hours of time to make sure things are resolved. I can give you my vsconfig file, vsconfig, and that vsconfig file, if you take it and you go to the VS installer, Visual Studio installer, it will install every other thing that I have. So everything that I have, you will have. Okay, I can give you that. What I'll do is I'll populate that on Blackboard for those people who are unsure if their Visual Studio is installed properly at home, okay, or on your personal laptop. All right, so now, next part. What we want to do, I'm just going to remove these, is I want to create a new project. Let's do that. So in Visual Studio 2022, I'm going to click Create New Project. Let's do that. going to take a second. Hopefully not so long as me with my little laptop. There we are. And what you want to do at the top, it normally will look like this, where it's unfiltered. It'll look like this. All languages, all platforms, all project types. If you're using the school's computer, it'll ask you, how do you want? Do you want a dark mode? It'll ask you to log in for the first time, okay? You can also log in to Visual Studio with your Microsoft account if you want to, okay? If you do, it'll remember you across different, kind of installations. But what we don't want all languages, we want C++. So that should be available to you if you're sitting in the computer in front of you, or at home if you've installed the C++ packages for Visual Studio. Okay, I want you to click on Console app, please. That is the one that we're going to start. Okay, so is there anyone not here at this point with me? Why not? What's going on? So you have it installed in your system? So if not, you need to do something. Oh, wait, you're back. So you don't have to. So I want you to log in because you're not going to follow up. Sorry. You have a chance for it. Sorry. If I just install it, like you're following off of that. So I can. So please this way. Okay. Everyone good? Everyone not good down here? All right, so now let's take off a console app, please. Here we go. Here's our console app. Click next. And when you come to this point, this is where we want to change some stuff. Okay? Now, I got to warn you, if your machine here or at home or whatever is managed by OneDrive, you need to put your repository somewhere else other than something that's managed by OneDrive. For example, downloads is a good safe place to put it, right? So you can create a folder in downloads called COMP1116 and put your repos in there. And this way, it's not going to be managed by OneDrive. Okay, let's do that together. So here you can see it's pointing at something like Tom source repos. This is incorrect. This will be managed by OneDrive. So I want to go here and click on this little ellipses. I'm going to browse to downloads. There it is. And then in downloads, I'm going to make a new folder called COMP1116. And that is the folder that I'm going to use for the location of my repos going forward. Select folder. So now this is what you're going to see here. The name of your project should be in-class exercise 1 or ICE 1, please. Let's do that. Okay? Are you with me? I know for the people who don't have Visual Studio, you're with me. So you need to launch this all right now. Is it installed? It's too long. It's not coming. It's going to take forever. Yes. Okay. You need to, you're missing a bunch of modules, right? So use this, it's ready to go. You don't have to do your you can always transfer your stuff over to your computer later, right? Good. Okay, anyone not good on this side? Yeah, moving on. Moving on. All right, so now that we've got the name and the location of this thing, I know I'm going slow, guys. Please, I apologize again. I have to try and accommodate everybody, right? And there's more of you than me. Bear with me. Hopefully this is not too slow for you. Click on Create. When you do, right? Now, again, there's a lot of assumptions here. You have C++ installed, the module's installed, if you're working on your machine, right? If you don't, like I said earlier, I will populate my vsconfig file, and you could go to the Visual Studio installer, and then later on install all the modules you're missing. I recommend you do it anyway. And I recommend you do this because I've got the latest version of Visual Studio installer and the latest modules you need to make work with Visual Studio. Okay. All right, so here we go. So what you should see is something like this. Let's get rid of all the comments. So again, by default, you have a bunch of comments here. Let's get rid of them. And I'm going to go step by step, step you through all this stuff and ask you some questions. So what you should see is something that looks like this. Okay, it's taking its sweet time. Okay, good. Are you with me? Do you have this? All right. Let's ask some questions. Why the include? What does that do? That first line, line what? What does that do? Take a chance. Even if you don't know what it does, tell me what it does. Take a chance. Yes?
To have a certain designated program, as it says, an iOS stream, which would mean to have code that already learned the process to, say, iOS stream.
Good. Include, inject any library, like you just kind of said, into this application, right? So when you look at include and it says IOStream, right? Then what it's doing here with IOStream is it's injecting the entire IOStream library here inside of our code. Yes?
Is that kind of like
It's like almost exactly like music. But however, I want to say this, in Visual Studio version of C++, you can also use using. Okay? We're not going to do that here. Okay? And so include does that. Include injects new content. And you're going to see that when we do Unreal Engine next week. We're also going to inject content from Unreal Engine inside of here as well. Okay? So not here, but in the other project. Okay? Next, we see this integer main. What I want you to think about this, when we looked at functions in the past in C#, this is a function, right? And in C#, they're actually called methods. That's what they're called in C#. Here in C++, all of these functions are called functions. This is the main function. And I also want you to think about this as the entry point to your program. Okay? So this, when we run this program for the first time, is where C++ looks to start this thing off. Int main. Okay? Here's something else, standard. Does anyone know what this standard is? Standard is a namespace. And the standard namespace, I want you to think about namespaces as a container for a bunch of classes. So let's suppose I had a bunch of classes that I don't have here installed, and IOStream, by the way, is the standard namespace. C++ has about 1 million lines of code that's waiting for you to use. But C++ is modular. We don't want to include every single framework and class inside of our little, hello world program. That doesn't make sense. It'll be like maybe gigabytes of code for one line of like output. That doesn't make sense. So it's modular. We only put stuff in that we need, right? So again, standard is the standard library. Okay, that's what it's saying. So hey, standard library. The 2 colons after standard, so standard colon, these colons are delimiters. That's what they're called. And it's basically saying, hey, standard, give me the cout class. That's what it is. Cout, right, is the console output. That's what it is. It's the out stream, right? And that's what it's doing. You say, hey, standard, I want the cout, the way to output the console. Yes. Kind of like debug log, but it's even more primitive than that. Debug log actually has a lot of stuff in it that you have, a lot of information. So cout basically says I'm going to output to the console, and these little marks here, these double left or less than signs, are what they are. Is they're saying in this direction. See how it's an arrow that's pointing towards cout? It's like saying here's my string literal. This is a string literal right here. This whole thing. This string literal, I want to read it character by character and send it through those arrows. It's telling you which direction it's going to the console output. That's what this is doing, okay? \n is an escape sequence. That's what this is, \n, right? / says I need an escape character. N means new line. That's what it means. So what it's doing is it's going to say hello world, and then it's going to give me an extra line. That's what \n does. Okay? And back in the day, I was saying this earlier to the class ahead of you guys, we used to have typewriters. Everything that's done today in the console comes from people actually typing in a terminal or a typewriter, right? So typewriters don't exist anymore. We use word processing, right? But back in the day when I was growing up, we had to learn how to type. That was part of our skill set or whatever. And we had a carriage return. The carriage return was a physical thing. So what happens is you have a carriage on the typewriter, and when I'm typing on the keyboard, as I'm typing, the carriage is moving, and it's basically populating the words on the paper that I have in front of me. And when it comes to the end, I'm at the end of my carriage. There's a little lever that I would press, and it would return the carriage back to the left. That's a carriage return, right? And eventually they added a return key on the keyboard. That return key goes to the next line. That's what this is. This is where it comes from. It comes from the carriage return. And actually, some people look at it and go, carriage return. Older programmers might say that. Just saying. Okay? I'm dating myself, I know. But that's how this works. So if I press play here at the top, let's do this together, guys. Press play, then what we expect to see is a console window come up, terminal window, for people who are on Mac. And my machine is a little slow, but you might see hello world at the top in the terminal, right here. Are you with me? This is your first program. Yay, you've made your first program in C++. Well, it was made for you, wasn't it? So this is great. We have the ability for output to the terminal. Realistically, it shouldn't say hello world. It should say hello, comma world, because the standard hello world first program is hello, comma world. It's very important you know this program, okay? Just for posterity. Otherwise, hello world with a space is incorrect. It's not complete. Okay? Next, now that we've done this, I want to connect our little thing that we have here to DevOps. Okay, this is tricky. Okay, and it's tricky because it depends on a lot of stuff. First of all, let's check to see if you have Git installed locally on your machine. And this is if you're a person who has your own laptop. Even if you're a person who's using the school machine, let's check this out. The way you bring up the terminal on the school machine is if you go to the Start menu and you type in CMD. CMD. Then you should see this command prompt come up like this. Okay, so I went to the Start button and press CMD. We're going to still try and do it real quick. That's okay.
I don't know what my username is after.
Maybe you've never used the school machine?
No, I don't know.
What's your room password, whatever it is? You can get that from services. Usually it's your first initial and last name. Usually. And then your Georgian account. You've never logged in before, but who's logged in on trains, on the sites? So it should be the same password you normally use. Right, whatever your same password is on. And if it's not, then it'll be, yeah. So it may not be that, because it says on the user, and it should say all right, so now that we have this, I want to connect you to DevOps. Let's see how we do that. But first, here's a test for you. If I type git -- version, right, then it should tell you the version of GitHub installed in your machine. Okay? Did you do that? Do you have it installed in your machine? Git? Do you know how to install it? Okay. Not that. That's the desktop. Go to command prompt, please. We're not using that. You're good? And for people who are using their own machine, if you don't have it, right, if you don't have things installed on your machine, you can get it from git-scm.com. Let me show you that site. For those people who want to, I'll put that as a resource later today up on Blackboard, because people have been asking. Git-scm.com. Git-scm.com is the place you get GitHub, the latest version of GitHub for your machine. Okay? If you follow the download instructions, you can install this thing if it's not working for you. Okay? I'll tell you right now that you will not be able to proceed with some of the stuff we're doing in this course if you do not have Git installed in your machine. Okay? So please make sure you have that installed for next time. If you're one of the people who don't have it installed and you're here, use the machine in front of you if you can. Okay, next. So now that we know we have Git installed, what we want to do is we want to connect it up to DevOps. Remember, on the DevOps page, if I go to my organization and I go to my project, your project will have a series of repos. In your case, you may only have one, like this one, okay? At the bottom, there's a bunch of stuff here that you can use to connect to your repo right here. However, we need to configure you first. So, back to Visual Studio, I want you to do it through Visual Studio. Let's try this. In Visual Studio, there is a built-in terminal. Let's go to View, and if I go to Terminal, it'll bring up the built-in PowerShell in Visual Studio. Okay? Advantage to doing it this way. You're already in the exact right folder that you should be in. Notice that I'm in Downloads, Georgian, COMP1116, I1. I'm already there. Right? I don't have to find it, change my direction to that or anything like that. It's there. That's the advantage. Disadvantage. Because I'm inside of Visual Studio, and I'm using Visual Studio, I'm missing two files. The Git file and the Git attribute file. Right? So if I was to start off my project by command line first, I'm going to miss those files. I'm going to give you those files later today. You'll have extra copies of those files. But for now, what we can do is we can use Visual Studio's built-in Git to generate those files for us. This is how you do that. Okay? You should have at the bottom add to source control. Okay, at the bottom of your project, you should see add to source control. If you click onto it, you'll see Git. Okay, and it'll bring up this dialog box. One day. There we go. This dialog box right here. Okay, notice that it has a bunch of destinations. One of them is GitHub. Another one is Azure DevOps. We're not going to use this one for now. We're going to use local only. This one, local only. Under local only, you're going to see that my local path is this, and then my gitignore template is Visual Studio, right? And this is great because I don't have to generate it or try and find it. It's right here. Okay, this is the advantage of that. I'm not going to put a license template, and I'm not going to use a README file right now. Okay? But this is what I want right here. When you're here, and is anyone not able to get here other than you? Anyone not able to get there? If you are here, just click create, please. What this is going to do, it's going to make you save this thing, and it's going to create your GitHub repo. Now, the GitHub repo that it's going to create is going to be very basic. It's whatever this has here. But one thing you can do is if you look at Git changes, which is actually another tab at the bottom of your Solution Explorer, you'll see that there's been some 2 commits overall. That's what it says. Okay, so this is great. How do I check this out locally? Well, you know where you put your project. If I go to my files, and if I go to downloads, and if I go find my project, let's take a look at that. So here's COMP1116. In ICE1, you can see that I have a hidden.git folder, as well as a git attributes and git ignore file. And how do I see these? If you go to view, you can go to show hidden items. Okay, that's important. You can show hidden items if you want to see those. And you can also show file name extensions, which is very important. Those 2 things, hidden items and file name extensions. Okay, these 2 things should be turned on. If you do, you'll see this stuff in here. You'll see the hidden.git folder. The hidden.git folder is where your Git repository is being stored. If you have a mistake, you can always delete the hidden .git folder, and you can start from scratch again. It's not going to affect anything. Okay? However, all of your commits will be gone. Right? So be careful about that. It's only if it's an emergency. Like somehow you messed it up or something and you want to start over without killing your files. But the great advantage of this is, look, I have a git attributes file and a git ignore file, and without those 2 files, Visual Studio, if we're doing command line inside Visual Studio, will cough out a log. It will not work properly. It'll go like, wait, you're trying to access this file because git attribute, remember what git ignore does. What does git ignore do? Yes? It ignores a bunch of stuff that's not necessary. So what happens is, if you don't ignore stuff that's not necessary, there might be a file that you're using that is locked inside Visual Studio that will prevent you from doing any kind of activity inside there. So you must use a git ignore file first before you do anything else. That's why we did this. In the future, I'm going to give you those 2 files and we can start from scratch. We won't have to do this anymore, but here they are. Okay? I want you to know where they are. All right, now that we have this, and we've added our hello world, let's now connect it to DevOps. But in order for me to do this, I want to go back to my terminal, and I want to identify myself. This is very important, right? So to identify yourself, you need to put in, I'm going to do this in the terminal window instead. You can do this in any terminal, by the way, not just here. I'm just going to do it here because it's bigger. Okay, here it is. I want to type in the following command, git config -- global, right? And then user.name, and in brackets your username, whatever that looks like. But this is not your username, but your friendly name that you're going to be, we're going to see you on, when you do commits. That's your friendly name, it's your actual name, right? That's what you're going to put there. Okay, that's your configuration. You need to do this. And the next piece you're going to do, after you've done that and you press enter, right? If it doesn't complain, I want you to assume everything is good. Okay, that's the first thing. Next, I want you to go to do this again, and this time you want to use user-email or .email, and then it'll be your Georgian College email that you're using with DevOps. So mine is like that. No quotations needed because there's no spaces. All right, so one long continuous thing. And good. Excellent. Switch the lights down so you can see things better a little bit. So now that we've done those 2 bits of configuration, we can close this window down. We don't need it anymore. And in here, I want to use all the pieces that I want to create for my DevOps connection. And the way to do that is back to your repo that you have. In this case, mine is ICE1A. And in here, there is like this little bit here that I want to copy. Git remote at origin. and I want to go right to here. I don't want to copy this part yet, not yet. Just this part, just the git remote at origin and all this, okay? So you can Control C to copy, go back to Visual Studio, and right click. Okay, it should look like this. Okay, yes. Just put up reading. Yes. Go to your DevOps. Go to your DevOps department. And then in your class, it says, what's this? This part, those two buttons, not the whole thing. Just up to one, this is one. All the way to, yeah, oh, yeah. Off of that, you'll see, go back to Visual Studio. And now you determine, so you want to go to View, and you want to go to Terminal. And what's that? And right click, one second. Right click. Go. Yeah. Anyone else with any problems? Yes. Any space after? Yes. Oh, I see what you want. That's fine. Not the whole thing. Just the first lines with this, where it's nice. Yes. Yes. To the high school, to the high school. Yeah, because you don't have people who install the keyboard, is it? So I get a, yeah, and you want, and you probably when you install git-scm, the problem is you have to install your own. Yeah. And so your own each server is a single driver. Yeah, are you okay with it?
I'm gonna try all of these, and then I'll try it again.
All right, can we continue? Are we good to continue? I know there's going to be a big, like, pause in the video. If you're watching the video, just fast forward, right? All right, so let's do this. So now that we've done this, I press enter, right? And what it's going to do is it's going to add my remote. So let's talk about this line here. Git is the name of the command. Remote is a connection that I'm making between my local repository and GitHub or DevOps or GitLab or whatever service is out there, okay? I'm just mentioning a couple services, right? GitLab is a popular service. Bitbucket's another one. All of them use Git, okay? That's the remote. The name for the remote is Origin. Now that is a very common name, but you can use whatever name you want. For example, let's suppose I have multiple remotes that I have configured with my account. Because I want to push something to a backup location, I'm nervous, I don't want to lose my files, and then I also push to this other location, maybe a build location, and so I can have a bunch of remotes connected at the same time, right? When you add origin, remote is the verb, or remote is the thing I'm doing, the noun, and add is the action. So I'm adding a remote. Origin's the name, and the path that we put there, HTTPS, so on, that's the path to remote. So that is the connection that you're making. That's the first thing we're doing. The next piece we want to add in is we want to specify the branch. I don't want it to be master. I want it to be main. So the way to do that, let's type it together, is git branch -m, capital -M, main. Okay, git branch main. I wish there was a way of making this bigger. There probably is. Let's see if I can do that. Terminal. Yeah, there's probably a way of doing that. I'm just not going to do it right here. So git branch -m, capital M, main. Okay, that's important. So what this does is it establishes the main, that main is your branch. Branches are just a container of a line of execution. So let's say, for example, I have the main branch, and I do all my commits to the main branch. That's okay. But if you're working with somebody else, a group of people, in a team, let's say, you really don't want to go on the main branch. You might want to have the Tom branch. And the Tom, I take from the main branch, and I copy it into my Tom branch. And I'm going along, and making features. And when I'm done, I merge back into the main branch. Why? I don't break my build. Right? My main build is good on the main branch. Does that make sense? So I've just done the main branch. I'm going to click enter. There we go. So that's no error. That means we're good. Next, I'm going to push for the first time. I'm going to git push -u origin main. Okay, so what does this mean? Push is the verb. Push means I'm going to send all of my local repository across the origin remote into DevOps in this case, or GitHub, or wherever it's pointing, right? And it's going to go across the origin remote into the main branch. That's where it's going. Okay? That's what's happening there. So git push, and it's going to ask you to log in. Let's execute this line. It'll ask you to log in for the first time with your Georgian credentials. Okay? And there we go. Yes. Should have git push -u lowercase u. It's important. And that's going to go to the top. This is login. Yes, let's hear it. You may have to log in again with your. Yeah, I'm logging off all there. You're awesome. So your machine is there getting something. So that's maybe on you here. So my machine is sorry, you want to do it. It's take this and drag that. Take this, take this forward and drag it. Oh, I know. You're not press D, hold on. Now you're like this. Okay, I'm going to stop recording this now. I'm going to take a short break, and I'll come around and fix everyone, okay? Otherwise, you're just going to be watching dead air.